Hey everyone, it's Deborah Poneman, founder of Yes to Success, where we share knowledge and tools for you to live your ultimate life, and Ageless, anti-aging for your brain, your body, and your future. So I just finished teaching module 3 of my 10-part Yes to Success course. And this morning, I want to share with you all of what I shared with my Yes to Success students. Now, last night was the third night of Passover, and yesterday was Good Friday, and tomorrow is Easter, and we're in the middle of Ramadan. So it's a very special time to celebrate freedom and birth and rebirth and miracles. And for those of you who are not familiar with the holiday of Passover, it celebrates the freedom the Jewish people experienced when Moses led them out of slavery, out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Like many Jewish holidays, we celebrate for more than one day. We kind of like long celebrations, like the 8 days of Hanukkah, which is nice because we get 8 presents. And during our high holy days, we have 7 days to atone for our sins between Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, and Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement. And if you count the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah and the 1 day of Yom Kippur, well, now we're coming in at 10 days where you get forgiven pretty much no matter what and get to start with a clean slate each year. I like that too. And then 7 days of Passover, which is the holiday that again commemorates the Jews' exodus from slavery and oppression by the Pharaoh, as depicted in the biblical book of, you guessed it, Exodus. So you remember that Exodus tells the story of the Jewish people being freed from slavery. And then when they got to the Red Sea, which is kind of the most memorable part, besides getting the 10 Commandments, when they got to the Red Sea, they looked in front of them was the Red Sea, and they looked behind them, and in the distance, they noticed that Pharaoh had changed his mind because all of his men on chariots were charging towards the Israelites. So Red Sea in front, Pharaoh's men behind, closing in on them. Actually, ever since I was a little girl, we read the story of the Exodus and symbolically reenacted on Passover how the 10 plagues befell the people of Egypt: boils and frogs and hail and darkness and wild beasts, and of course, death of the firstborn, which is when Pharaoh finally said, okay, free the Jewish slaves. And there's all kinds of symbolism. We dip parsley, which is the sign of spring, because it always happens around springtime, but you dip the parsley in salt water to remind us of the tears that our ancestors shed when we were slaves. And we eat matzah, which is this unleavened bread. It's more like a large cracker, but we eat that for 8 days, which is actually 7 days, which is bread with no leavening, to remind us how the Israelites had to eat with haste and with no time for their bread to rise when they were wandering in the desert for 40 years. So we can't eat anything with leavening for these days because we eat matzah. But really, it's a holiday that asks us to stop and appreciate our freedom. And I love to gather around the table with my family and retell each year the story of Passover and our journey from slavery to freedom, and to appreciate that God guided us and let us be free and gave us the 10 Commandments. Again, you remember, you saw the 10 Commandments, Charlton Heston and all that. But one thing that I learned as an adult when I began studying Kabbalah, that it's a different interpretation of the story of the Exodus from what I learned when I was a child. And although I believe in miracles, Red Sea parting, this other interpretation makes a lot of sense. So again, the traditional explanation in the Bible of the parting of the Red Sea is that Moses lifted his staff and God performed a miracle by parting the Red Sea, making a path for the Israelites to go through. And once the last Israelite was on the other side with Pharaoh's army just feet away in hot pursuit, God closed the Red Sea, and all of Pharaoh's men and the horses and the chariots drowned. Actually, I used to have nightmares about that scene in the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, with all of the horses drowning in the Red Sea, but I digress. But the interpretation in Kabbalah is a little different. Yes, the Pharaoh let the Israelites go, and then Pharaoh changed his mind. And as they stood at the Red Sea, the people were desperate and they were calling out to God, help us, help us. But in Kabbalah, it says, which by the way, Kabbalah is the Jewish mystical text, They say that while the Israelites stood there crying out to God for help, God said to them, Matziach El-I, which is, why are you yelling at me? Why are you calling to me? And as the Israelites became more and more desperate, as Pharaoh's men got closer and closer, one man waded into the water. And at first the water came up to his knees, and then to his stomach, and then to his chest, and then to his chin. And when the water covered his face, the Red Sea parted. It just took one man with total trust in God, Reuben ben Yaakov, who acted. He didn't just say, help me, help me. He acted with boldness and with faith to part the Red Sea. So when we come to our own Red Seas, we need to step into them with boldness and power and watch them part. We can't just stand there and call out to God. We need to take action that shows trust, and then we'll get the support of the God of our understanding. So that is the takeaway for me. And similarly, during the holiday of Easter, we also celebrate freedom, and we recount the anniversary of Jesus Christ's resurrection and ascension. Recounting the story of Jesus overcoming even death reminds us that no matter how much suffering we're experiencing in our lives, there is always a chance to rise again. I think that most of us have experienced our own version of the crucifixion, be it in the form of perceived failure or abuse, or losing everything financially, or being left for another, or some health situation. But Christ's example confirms that we will rise again. The Course in Miracles says there is no order of difficulty in miracles. And this, apparently, is the season of miracles. And speaking of miracles, on top of everything else, astrologically, this April 11th, which I guess is next Tuesday, is called astrologically the luckiest day of the year. It's the one day of the year that the sun, which is so generous, teams up with unbounded power, Jupiter, just unbounded greatness and leadership. And this annual event is so brimming with optimism that astrologers have actually nicknamed it the Day of Miracles. The website AstroStyle says this. It says, in 2023, the Sun-Jupiter conjunction is in trailblazing, novelty-loving Aries. This placement supports your boldest and most daring actions. Whatever is in your path, this dynamic duo tints with a rosy can-do glow. Got a new initiative to launch, a new fresh idea to debut? That could be a rich moment to put yourself out there. But that doesn't mean you can't be proactive about boosting the odds that you'll manifest your desires. Fortune favors the bold, especially since this event takes place in Can-Do Aries. So make the first move and be bold, and watch the results come back to you manifold. So again, happy spring, happy Passover, happy Easter, happy Ramadan, happy Day of Miracles. And remember to face your own Red Sea, and that fortune favors the bold. Sending love to you. Bye for now.